Hello, brothers and sisters. It's a new week. Welcome to our show titled Speak of Africa. We have another great show for you today. What is Africa like this week? Well, the major news story in Africa this week is the hosting of the African Union meeting, a summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Of course, we've talked about the African Union on this show many times. We've referred to it as a dysfunctional organization. In fact, in 2002, the OAU, which stood for the Organization of African Unity, became the African Union. What was the purpose of this organization? The founding fathers, such as Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Haile Selassie, they thought that a better way to promote the unity of Africa is Pan-Africanism, is to bring all the African countries together so that brothers and sisters can work together to consolidate the gains of independence from colonial masters. But that dream has long been deferred. What is happening? Well, it is a serious disappointment. We've always told you, today the African youth are crying. The African youth are furious. The African youth are angry. They are angry at the AU. Their anger, in fact, is overshadowing the news of the hosting of this meeting in Ethiopia this weekend. That's really the problem. People are too angry because they feel the AU has become a dictator's club. Instead of serving the needs of the African people, the need for unity socially, the need for unity politically, the need for unity economically, now the African Union has become a dictator's club. It serves only the interests of dictators. Dictators want the African Union to be dysfunctional because it serves their purpose. They don't want anything to work. We have political problems to solve. We're thinking the African Union will solve our political problem. No. African leaders feel nobody should interfere in their countries. They have sovereignty and they don't want anybody to tamper in their country. So how can we have a Pan-African nation? We've been talking about the need to have one country in Africa. They need to have one passport so that our people can travel. They need to have one currency, one economy. All those things are a mirage because our same presidents are the ones sabotaging these ambitions, all these grand ambitions. They make sure they do not happen. That's the problem. And we have a whole lot of examples to show you. When you look at what is happening all over the continent, the African leaders themselves are the ones torpedoing all the plans of progress. And we can start politically. You can see that politically, Africa is failing. Democracy is not working. Democracy succeeds in the West, but it's not succeeding in Africa. It's failing. Starting with Cameroon. This week, we saw Paul Biya celebrating his 93rd anniversary at Etudi Palace. There was a lot of fanfare. He was sitting with his family. You saw his son, Frank Emmanuel Biya, sitting next to him. His wife was also there. His sisters were also present. Then all his closest people. Folks like Ferdinand Gongo were kept at bay. Mvondayolo were kept at bay. So you could see that this was a tight-knit event, just his family. Then the message to Cameroonians is, my son is close to me now. So you guys are waiting for a cabinet reshuffle, and you are fixated on this cabinet reshuffle. Just know that my son is going to take over from me. So I'm presenting him to you subliminally, so that you know that this is your next leader. I'm getting older and older. I'm almost incapacitated. Once I cannot function, my son will take over. And I'm doing everything possible so that you guys don't resist. He will take over. So we have the Biya dynasty, which is going to continue ruling Cameroon. You may not like it, but this is what Paul Biya wants to happen. And so far, a lot of the guys in the military are cowards. They just care about their stomach. They don't really care about any national interest. They don't care about their country. They care about a dictator who can give them what they want. And which is why people ask me, how come Paul Biya can reign for more than 43 years in a country and there is no opposition? Well, he has bought his way. This is what happens in much of Africa. He has bought his way. Since the first abortive coup d'etat, Paul Biya has done everything possible to weaken the army, to weaken all the institutions that could actually challenge his rule. So now he runs the country like a king, a benevolent king. He can do what he pleases. He can be sleeping in Europe and the country will be run by him because he has his agents. He runs the country, he's in the shadows, and he keeps ruling the country by proxy. That's what is happening. So you can see all the pictures. While this is happening, you ask yourself, where is Issa Chiroma? Well, the Cameroonian people were thinking that Issa Chiroma is going to become a change factor. Right now, Issa Chiroma is missing in action. We've watched all the news channels. No news channel is talking anymore about Issa Chiroma. Issa Chiroma has faded completely. This 11th February, it was a youth day. Some of the people were marching. We saw students marching, Sase College, BBSS, and all the other schools in Boya and other places. Nobody was even thinking about Issa Chiroma. So it's like life continues as normal. People have forgotten about the election of October 12th. Biya has taken over the country. He continues ruling. Nobody talks about Issa Chiroma. So Issa Chiroma, what are you doing in the Gambia? The people are not hearing from you. So have you surrendered? Are you not defending your victory? You promised the Cameroon people that they should go to the street and die for you. You're going to protect your victory if you are elected president. Now they gave you the opportunity. You did not hold on to that bargain. So the Cameroonian people are really disappointed in Issa Chiroma. Serious disappointment. And of course, the problems are still there. The African Union is not dealing with these problems. They feel like Cameroon is Biya's problem. We of the African Union cannot do anything to Cameroon. And that's a mistake. We should have one parliament as a continent. If we have one parliament, then we can force all the presidents not to abuse their own people. If a president abuses his people, then the African Union Parliament will intervene and censor that president. But right now, every president has his turf. The country is the turf of the president. He can do whatever he wants. He can kill his people. Nobody says anything. He can steal elections. Nobody says anything. And that's the fate of Africa today. We've said it so many times. This is probably the 4th time we're doing a video on the African Union. This organization is useless. It should be disbanded. It is not serving the needs of Africa. It is not serving the needs of the African people. It is not serving the needs it was formed to serve. So let it go. This is not only unique to Cameroon, where we have problems every day. People may tell you, oh, Ambazonia doesn't exist anymore, but you have Boko Haram in the north. Then even in the northwest and southwest of the country, you still have people dying. If Biya soldiers are not killing people, then the Ambazonia folks are kidnapping people. And of course, one of the Reverend Fathers who was kidnapped, I think Tata Binri, we hear has become Assistant Bishop of Bamenda. The Pope has made him Assistant Bishop, so that's good news. So, when we look at the African Union, its limitations are not only in Cameroon. When we look at Nigeria, Nigeria has been struggling with terrorism. What is the African Union doing about it? The African Union talks about silencing the guns. How can you silence the guns when you don't have the wherewithal? The African Union is weak. Can you believe that the African Union does not even have the money to finance its own programs? The West, America and other European countries, the European Union, they are the ones financing the African Union. They pay the African Union, they tell the African Union what to do. Similarly, we had the embarrassing moment when the Chinese built the new center for us in Addis Ababa. Then they put microphones, then they blocked everything. So whatever they were discussing in that chamber, China knew it. So why did you accept China to pay to build this structure for you? Why didn't you do it yourself? When you are a beggar, this is what happens. So even when we look at this week, Evariste Ndayishimiye of Burundi, he is the new chairman of the African Union. But look at his country. He won re-election in very suspicious circumstances. So is that democracy? Democracy has failed over there. And that country has problems politically, socially, and economically. But he's leading the African Union. What change is he going to bring to this organization? Not much. It's just a dictators club, and the youth of Africa will keep getting angry. So when Cameroon was celebrating Youth Day on February 11, you could see the people getting angry. Similarly, the youth of Nigeria are angry. They are furious with Bola Tinubu. Bola Tinubu is fixated on winning re-election. He's not even thinking about economic policies, what can help the country. He has been making efforts to buy all the politicians. You look like the Igbos. The government is marginalizing your people. You guys say you're fighting, you're supporting Nnamdi Kanu. But what is happening? All those politicians, Nyesom Wike and many others, they are all in the payroll, on payroll of Bola Tinubu. He's paying them. So he has corrupted all of them. They are not even talking about Biafra anymore. They're not even talking about Ibab. They're not talking about it anymore because they have been bought. Soya, as we say in Pidgin, they don't chop soya. When they have been bribed, they cannot be talking about Bola Tinubu in critical terms. They only say, oh, he's the greatest. He's going to run again. We're going to support him. But Nigeria is burning. This week, we read a lot of articles. Nigeria has accepted that the U.S. should send over 200 soldiers to the country to help fight terrorism. They said they did not want to do this, but now they've done it. So U.S. soldiers are now in Nigeria. Isn't this a shame? Where is Nigeria's sovereignty? Why can Nigerians not sit down as a government, come up with a plan to fight their own problem? Why must the U.S. come and rescue Nigeria? Does it mean that Nigeria is very weak? The Nigerian army should know better how to fight this menace. They can learn from outsiders, but it is their fight. Oh no, the Americans are not going to be on the war front. They will just be like officers advising us, training us, but they're not going to be in front. We will still be fighting the fight ourselves. Come on. When you bring Americans into your country, Africans are naive. You're creating problems because they're going to learn your systems. Then tomorrow, when they overthrow you, don't be surprised because you expose yourself to Americans. And when they come, they don't leave. That's a sad message I'm giving to Nigerians. Do you see what happened in Afghanistan? When the American military comes to your country, they never want to leave. They will stay there forever. They will suck all your resources. So what this means is Bola Tinubu is already paying America. We told you with a lobbying story last week. And this paying of America continues. So these 200 soldiers from America, who do you think is footing the bill? Nigeria is footing the bill. But the people in most of those remote areas are the ones paying with their lives. The government cannot assure their security. As a nation, they are supposed to be secure. But even this week, in Niger State, we hear over 46 people were killed. Okay? Every week, more and more people are killed. Why is Bola Tinubu not doing anything about it? Oh, the security forces are having a meeting. You're having a meeting. Why are you not thinking about looking for ways to solve this problem? So that's the challenge we see in Nigeria today. Then, of course, what about Congo DRC? It's a similar problem. Last week, we told you about the lobbying by the government of Felix Tshisekedi. They're lobbying people from the Trump administration. They cannot fight their own fight. He said, oh, je vais faire la guerre à Kagame. Tu ne peux pas faire la guerre à Kagame. Parce que Kagame est très fort. You want to make yourself head. You said, I want to take the fight to Kagame. Can you fight Kagame? Kagame is a tough guy. And you cannot fight Kagame. So it's a disgrace. Kagame is still occupying Goma and all the other countries, using the M23 as a proxy. What are you doing about it? The soldiers of the country, Congo DRC, don't even want to fight. So the M23 has just been capturing more and more territory until America told them to stop. Now, there's a Faustian deal. Congo DRC will give America natural resources. In return, America will try to make it possible for Felix Tshisekedi to stay in power. What a deal. So you're selling the resources of your country, because we want to stay in power. What a shame. Then, of course, even in places like Gabon, there's trouble. What is the African Union going to do about it? The African Union did not do anything when Olingi Nguema took over the country, seized the country in a coup d'etat. One of the elements of the Charter of the African Union is the ban of coup d'etats. But Olingi Nguema came to power through a coup d'etat. What happened? He's still running the country. He's still part of the AU. What about Guinea? Mamadi Doumbouya also staged a coup d'etat. What has happened to him? Nothing. They're only challenging Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger because these countries are against their colonial masters. If these countries were not against their colonial masters, they would still accept them in the AU. But they are not accepting them because they are against their colonial masters. So that's why we say the African Union as an organization has failed. Then what about Somalia? Somalia has a serious problem. Donald Trump has been insulting Somalians in the US because of the problems they're having in Africa. Israel went into action and recognized Somaliland. How is this playing with the AU? What did the AU do about it? The AU did not do anything to Israel. In fact, they will invite Israel to their sessions to come and listen to them speak. But can the Knesset accept an African leader to come and dictate to them how they should run their country? No. So this is the sad part we see in our continent. Then, of course, what about Sudan? Well, in Sudan, we have even more serious problems. For more than 3 years, there's been a civil war. Two generals who used to work together decided to divide the country, split it, and burn the country to ashes because of their selfish ambitions. Al-Burhan wants to run the country. Delgado wants to be the leader. So two of them have been fighting. RSF, which is the arm wing of Delgado, has been committing a lot of crimes in the Western Darfur region. Similarly, the army also has been committing a lot of crimes. So the AU has been unable to stop these two parties from tearing the country apart. So what is the AU good for them? The AU is a useless organization. We keep saying it, and we are putting pressure so that they should disband this organization. Stop wasting taxpayers' dollars on the AU. The AU is not achieving any goals, no objectives. It's sad. Okay? Then what about Uganda? Well, Uganda also just had elections. Museveni came to power claiming to clean the country, then he will not stay for long. But look at him. He has been there. The guy is over 70. Then he wants his crazy son, that they call Shuhuzu General, to take over. Bobby Wine, who is a character loved by the youth, is threatened, terrorized because of his presidential ambitions. What is the AU doing about it? The AU cannot do anything to Museveni. So Yoweri Museveni can do whatever he wants. So nobody can stop him. The AU should probably be an organization that can correct the wrongs of African leaders. But the AU is very weak to effectuate such change. Nothing can happen because the AU is weak. So why not remake the AU? Why waste the resources of the African people to keep an organization like this? This is like a moribund organization. That's a question the young people of Africa, the youth, are raising. They are angry, they are furious, and they want change. And that's why we are the voice of the youth. We are telling you what the youth wants. Then what about Tanzania? And hundreds of people were killed by this lady. What happened? Did the AU censor her? No. The AU just clapped for her. Thanks for killing your people. You are still one of us. That's what happens in the Dictators Club. Then why are the youth angry? You ask me. The youth are angry because the African Union is not doing its job. The African Union is not doing what it was created to achieve, which is political peace, social peace, economic prosperity for the African people. Then, Libya is even the worst case where we're going to end our story of the week. We hear Saif al-Islam, the son of Muammar Gaddafi, has been killed. But when you look at it, Gaddafi had a country that was very good. It was running. It was not a perfect country. No country is perfect. We understand some people say Gaddafi was a dictator, but his people were living well. Better than what happens in other African countries. Libyans had everything. Gaddafi was a dictator, but he was using the wealth of the country to help his people. The only weakness Gaddafi had was that he was a dictator, just the way my professor, Judge Aite, used to say, there's no such thing as a good dictator. All of them are bad. But if we could have a good dictator, then Gaddafi probably would have been a good dictator. I know people talk a lot about his rhetoric, the Arab Jamahiriya, the third universal theory. After capitalism and socialism, I'm coming up with a better way to combine and come up with the best of both worlds. Capitalism, socialism. What can we do to have a better system? That's the third universal theory of Gaddafi, written in his green book. So we don't really want to say we are Gaddafi's proponents. We know he had some good ideas, but what we're saying is we want African leaders to do a lot for their country. And even when we talk about the African Union, Gaddafi did a lot to finance this organization. A lot. So people have to give him credit. He used the money of his country to launch the African Union. It's unfortunate he made a lot of mistakes and was killed. And we know he was killed for mostly personal reasons. Gaddafi had a fondness for sleeping with the wives of a lot of the heads of states of Africa. So that made him an enemy. And the problem too is we understand he was sleeping with the wife of Sarkozy, who was a French president. So that just made him persona non grata. So Sarkozy hated him. Even though Gaddafi had spent a lot of money to finance the campaign of Nicolas Sarkozy, because he slept with Sarkozy's wife, that made him an enemy of Sarkozy. You see that? So they said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But Gaddafi committed adultery, and that became a sin. So it became a problem. So we've come to the end of our show. We've presented most of the important points. So what should we do if we want to reform the AU? Our point is simple. First, we need to create a new charter. The AU needs to become an African parliament. So this president should not have the power to decide what happens in their country. So the presidents of Africa should become like governors of the United States of Africa. If we don't like what they are doing, the other presidents can remove them. But right now they cannot do that because the African Union is a dictator's club. We have to change that. Then the next phase is the economy. We cannot have an economy if we are still dependent on the Western guys. They buy our natural resources for pennies on the dollar. It's like they pay nothing for it. We have to stop that. Which is why the countries in the Sahel, Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, Niger, Mali, they are doing things differently. They are coming out with resource nationalism. The resources of Africa should be for Africans. So that's a new message. And this is why their message is resonating with the youth of Burkina Faso, with the youth of Mali, with the youth of Niger. Because the people like the fact that Africans are rising up against the colonial masters. Okay? No more should we take our resources and give to France for nothing. France has to pay us a fair share for our resources, a fair amount of money. That's what we want. But we cannot do this if we don't have our own currency. The current problem we face is dollarization. The US dollar is very strong, so everything, if you want to buy it, you need to have dollars. If you don't have dollars as part of your foreign exchange, you are subject to the vagaries of the US economy. When the US economy is not doing well, you are affected because you have to buy things using the US dollar, which is why the countries of the BRICS are now trying to overthrow the dollar. We talk about de-dollarization. That's the economic process. But we need to have our own currency. Nigeria has a currency, but they are not doing a good job managing that currency well. We need to have our own currency. Some of my proponents, like my friend Larry Ojong, talks about the Afro. We need to have our own currency, our own money, so we can determine our own economic future. We can determine, because without our own money, how can we develop? Because we've mortgaged our lives to America. That's a weakness. We need to have our own currency, our own money. In economics, we studied the value of money. We need to have our own currency, then fight to defend it. Then we need to have our own Federal Reserve so that we can manage this currency ourselves. We will know when we should embark on an expansionist policy or a way to contract the economy. So we can use interest rates to regulate the affairs of the economy the way we see fit. Then socially, we need to have one passport, because that's why we call ourselves one people. We cannot be one people if there are so many bottlenecks. You want to travel from Nigeria to South Africa, there are so many bottlenecks as a business person. Aliko Dangote has spoken about these bottlenecks many times, and we brought this to your attention. So we need to have one passport in the entire of Africa. So this is a dream. The youth of today, you guys will make this dream come true. It doesn't matter how long it takes. We know the dream is going to come true. So you've watched our video. Raise the issues that we're raising with your friends and family. Please comment. We want you to comment on this video so that a lot more people can be talking about our show and the need for Africa to be free. Africans, your young people are angry because they are frustrated. They are traveling to Europe in search of greener pastures because opportunities are lacking at home. So stop just saying the youth are the future when you don't really mean what you're saying. Because the youth are tired. They are tired of empty slogans. Okay? So change is coming. Let change come to Africa. Bye-bye.
Selling a service or a product? Need buyers? Use the African Nation TV as a channel to reach many viewers. Act now and call Prince Ojong at 240-350-1131. That's 240-350-1131. Act today.